With that being said, we're going to transition over to the football transfer portal. The portal is now closed for for both football and basketball, and as a part of that, there were actually no Alabama scholarship football players that entered this spring transfer portal. This is obviously incredible news. A lot of this is just good to hear, right? The reason it's so good to hear is when you think about Alabama football as it currently sits, the players that transferred immediately following Nick Saban, obviously those people, may have thought were going to be playing for Saban. They didn't want to play for DeBoer. That's one thing. Then you have the players that went through the season, and they've now been given two different opportunities immediately following the season as well as in the spring to transfer out. And so those players that are currently on the roster today have reaffirmed their commitment to DeBoer on at least 3 separate occasions. And so the huge piece of that is this is clearly DeBoer's team now, right? Now, that's not to say that Nick Saban did not recruit any of these guys, because of course he did. But in today's age of the transfer portal, in today's age of the way college athletics works with NIL, with just everything, right? Coaching, NIL, transfer portal. These are DeBoer's players fully and truthfully at this point. So the question becomes, what is DeBoer able to do with them? We're going to talk a little bit about my thoughts on that here shortly. But when you look at the transfer portal, the spring transfer portal for Alabama was actually pretty quiet. Alabama made a lot more moves in the fall transfer portal or winter transfer portal. Obviously, Alabama picking up for transfers in. Alabama was able to get Draylon Washington, Peter Knudsen, Nakai Hill-Green, one of the big guys from Colorado, Isaiah Horton, obviously one that, if you've been following our wide receiver room, a name that's jumping off the page with people, Cam Dewberry from A&M, Cam Calhoun from Utah, right? There's some names that jump off the screen at you. And obviously Alabama made a lot of big waves. Obviously not the craziest of transfer portal classes, but definitely got some spots of need filled there. And then in the spring transfer portal class, they picked up 2 tight ends. And it was clear that obviously tight end was a place that Alabama knew that they needed some help. Obviously, Cuevas, I'm pretty sure, got hurt at one point, as well as just having not enough tight ends for the system that DeBoer wants to run and Ryan Grubb wants to run. And we'll talk a little bit more about Grubb here in a minute. But, so as a part of that, it was clear that tight end was a position of need, and it was clear they were looking for a certain style tight end. And when I say that, both of these guys are in that 6'4", 6'5", 230, 240 range. Big tight ends, blocking bruiser-style tight ends. Jack Samarco from West Virginia has just 1 catch. He's not somebody who obviously is coming in to be a receiving tight end. He is somebody coming in to be a blocker. So obviously that is good to see. Based on what I've previously read, I think Pro Football Focus had him as a very, very good tight end from that blocking perspective, right? So what we're bringing him in here to do, he is very successful at. So obviously the scouting and analytics and recruiting department has done a good job identifying somebody that fits the need that you're looking for. And then you have Brody Dalton, the transfer from Troy, a little bit more of a receiving threat, still not, the craziest of receivers. He had 18 catches last year with 3 touchdowns. I think he had just under 200 yards receiving. So for a tight end, it's not nothing. It's definitely not somebody that you're going to be throwing to on every down or anything, but it is somebody that definitely has the hands to be able to catch some passes, be successful in the red zone, etc. But again, another guy that's a big guy, able to block, and you're again filling that position of need and filling that with people that are able to do what you're looking for on from the tight end position, right? I think that's the thing where Alabama has been most successful is Alabama, again, is just identifying the places in which they're a little thin, or need a specific burst, and that's what they're going for in the transfer portal. They're not trying to bring in some flashy player. They're just looking for this person fits our system, this person fits what we're trying to do, and so that's who we're going after, right? A lot of what Alabama's success has been this season is the recruiting and retaining of current talent. So you have obviously your guys like Ryan Williams, your guys, your quarterbacks, right? You got Ty Simpson and you have Prez. You have all these guys that you're able to retain. You're able, even from the quarterback room, you're also able to retain Austin Mack, which a lot of people had heard may enter the transfer portal. There's just multiple guys you're able to retain, and so a big piece of that is because Alabama's been able to retain the talent they've been able to retain. That's the reason why you haven't had to go into the transfer portal to go after anything super crazy. You've done a good job recruiting, you've done a good job developing, and now you've done a good job retaining. And obviously, a lot of credit to that is with Courtney Morgan being the GM of the team, as well as with Kalen DeBoer and the vision for the staff and how the players think the staff is going to be successful here moving forward. And when we're talking about the staff, there's a new addition to the staff, and we talked a little bit about him when he was originally announced to officially be coming to Alabama for the second time, I guess. Ryan Grubb. Ryan Grubb is back into the fold, calling the plays for the Alabama football team on the offensive side of the field. I guess a trade with Jalen Milroe, or a trade with Seattle for Jalen Milroe. We get Ryan Grubb, they get Milroe. A situation that I think is going to work out very well for Alabama. Obviously, for those of you unaware, Ryan Grubb was the offensive coordinator for Kalen DeBoer. Both years at Washington, was the guy who was able to was calling the plays during the Michael Penix successful seasons. He is a guy that has been very successful in college, had a stint in the NFL last season, as I mentioned, did not have a ton of success, was let go at the end of the year, and, made his way back to Tuscaloosa, where he was, like I said, briefly announced as Alabama's offensive coordinator before taking that job in Seattle. He's a guy that, by some accounts, is a little bit more hard-nosed compared to DeBoer's kind of even-keeled nature. It does sound like, from some of the things that I've read, that he does give a little bit of a salt and pepper, to Kalen DeBoer, where, DeBoer can give one different leadership style, whereas Grubb gives a completely different style. Something that I think obviously will be very good. I think that them having worked together and kind of getting the band back together, so to speak, is a good thing. Obviously, Nick Sheridan stayed on staff, and that's because Nick Sheridan was the tight ends coach with Ryan Grubb previously, and Jamarcus Shepard as well, right? So you're bringing in, again, back to the guys that DeBoer had the success with at Washington. So I think this is a place where Alabama definitely got better this offseason. Not any, shade on Nick Sheridan, but I do think that Ryan Grubb is a substantially better play caller than Nick Sheridan. I think Sheridan, is able to help in the, obviously with the specific coaching, but I do think from a play calling perspective, I definitely prefer what I'm getting out of Ryan Grubb. I do also like that we're able to get Ryan Grubb with a little bit different of a quarterback look. Obviously he's not, and I don't want to say pigeonholed in a bad way, but he's not pigeonholed into having Jalen Milroe. They're able to kind of sit down and see what quarterback is going to be the best for them, whether it be Ty Simpson, whether it be Keelan Russell, whether it be Austin Mack. All reports are sounding like this is a Ty Simpson and Keelan Russell race, with Ty Simpson currently in the lead. But that's what it's sounding like, right? And so since you're having a guy like Ryan Grubb and the success from play calling that he has, I think that that's something that's going to be really, really good for this team. Really quick, what I want to end with is talk a little bit about expectations. I know I mentioned them a little bit at the end of last episode. I know a lot of that was geared around Alabama basketball and improper expectations that some fans had set for us. But I do think it's something that we still need to talk about when we're talking about Alabama football. Expectations for this season, I think that the expectations for this season can be very high. And I think even though you have a new starting quarterback, and I think the reason for that is because I think you're returning a ton of guys on defense and a ton of guys at key positions on defense that are going to cause you to be able to be super successful. The big thing is you didn't have the guys that were going to be the fringe second, third rounders, maybe day 3 guys enter the NFL draft, your LT Overtons of the world. They came back for another season. And so these guys have something to prove on that defensive side of the football. I also think that Alabama football on defense got much better throughout the course of the season. Obviously, Vanderbilt was like a low light on the team, unable to just get off the football field. But I do think that overall, Alabama's defense got better as the season went on. I think some of the games that we had issues, whether it be Oklahoma, whether it be Tennessee, were due to the offense, not due to the defense. I thought the defense played well enough to win both of those games. And unfortunately, the offense just did not put them in the position to win. I do think additionally, because of the returning talent that you have from Ryan Williams, the additionally bringing in Isaiah Horton, bringing back Jeremy Bernard, bringing back some of your offensive linemen, bringing in a guy like Cam Dewberry, I think that Alabama is going to have some of the continuity on both sides of the football field. And I think because of that continuity on both sides of the football field, my expectations for the football team this year are actually very high. I think anything less than a playoff appearance is a failure. I think that, Alabama obviously has a shot to really compete for an SEC title. I think that obviously needs to be the expectation moving forward, even though this is a mega conference. This is, one of the toughest conferences in all of college football. Alabama spins and Alabama develops, and Alabama has the staff and player personnel, support personnel around the football team to compete at the highest level. So I think anything less than competing at that level is a failure. I do think that this also gives again DeBoer an entire full off season where the guys that are on the team at this point have recommitted their intention to play for DeBoer, right? Not just on one occasion, on multiple occasions they've recommitted, hey, I want to play for DeBoer, I want to play for this team, I want to play for this staff. And because of that, I do think that gives, DeBoer the ability to make some changes that I don't know if he felt comfortable making last season. And that's not to say he was fully pigeonholed into who he had to start, who he had to play, etc. But I do think that there was a little bit of you returned and you were able to come back for me and not leave the cupboards bare post Nick Saban, where he felt a bit indebted, right? It's what it kind of seemed like. There were certain guys that were on the field and certain ways that things were mentioned where it felt like he was a little indebted to certain players. Again, maybe that wasn't the case, maybe it was, but that's what it seemingly felt like. And I do think that because of the changes and the fact that all these players have decided, no, this is the place I want to be, this is the team I want to play for. I think what this does, really gives us the team and the mindset that Alabama needs to kind of win games moving forward. So that's what my current thoughts are. Again, we're going to talk way more in depth about this football team. We're going to talk more position by position breakdowns. I plan to try to have on some guys that are much better at this than I am from a football perspective. I follow it fairly closely. I know who all the major guys are, but I do not follow the transfer portal as closely as some others. I do not follow recruiting as closely as some others. You're too deep. I don't follow nearly as closely as some others. So I do want to try to bring on some people from a football perspective. So if you know of anybody that would be good at this, reach out to them, tell them to reach out to me. I would appreciate it. I'm more than happy to talk to them if they're willing to come on the show. Again, if you're not subscribed to the channel, whether it be on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, I would appreciate if you would do so. It absolutely helps me out. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace.